Steve Jobs rear-ended a guy, one of his employees, and fired him. I want to be that kind of man.
Have you ever made fun of one of the most powerful companies in the world? I only went home for spring break twice during college, and in March 2013, my friends and I decided to try to shoot 2 projects while we were back. I took the Coast Starlight Amtrak train from Union Station to Salinas again, and I think that was my favorite way to make that trip. I could plug in my laptop and edit, could work on homework, or even just sleep for about 8 hours. And if I got hungry, the train had both a snack bar and a restaurant that took reservations. But once I was back in Salinas, my parents took me to Chili's, my first meal in a restaurant in quite a while. After months of eating mostly cafeteria food and microwaved ramen, I'd really come to appreciate restaurants. However, I could see things had continued to deteriorate because my mom was now drinking openly in front of my dad, saying she'd been able to handle it so far, and my dad had kind of begrudgingly let it happen, not wanting to start a huge argument on my first night back home. But while I was back, my high school friend group had plans, and we called our first project Apple Spoof. Once Max Huston had gotten back for the small part of our breaks that overlapped, he, Collin, Aaron Shee, Tyler Zenda, and I met up at Aaron's house to make a fake Apple testimonial. It was fun, easy, and a good way to see everyone again in a lighthearted way. Aaron was our director of photography, and it was unscripted, so each of us improvised on a different topic. Max Huston focused on unplanned functionality.
I prefer the Facebook app because it makes me more effective at stalking. I actually just use it as a mirror the whole time.
I focused on the size and models of the products.
When they made the first iPod, it was a brick. And if anyone tried to steal it, you could beat them to death with it.
Tyler Zenda fangirled over Steve Jobs himself.
My celebrity crush is Steve Jobs. He's like a genius, and I'm so sad that he died. I felt like he was for me, and I'm so sad I never got to meet him because he's so dreamy. Like, he's just a genius.
And Collin did puns and everything else.
You know, there's actually a disturbing rate of unemployment in cancer cells. Luckily, though, they all got jobs at Apple. Steve Jobs isn't actually dead. He's waiting. In Relay with Cthulhu. Yeah, Steve Jobs Photogin.
The video was a little ironic in hindsight because Aaron Shee would go on to work for Apple years later, but you never know where you'll end up, and it didn't prevent him from getting hired or anything. That might have been the last time we were in that house together, though, because Aaron's parents moved to Monterey after that, and, since it wasn't his house anymore, we never set foot inside it again. But it had been a large part of our lives growing up, a place we'd spent the night, hung out in for hours, and even where we'd thrown our first real party.
Go ahead, do it.
You can see that she's not under the covers.
But what is it better?
There we go. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
I swear the world better prepare for when I'm a billionaire. Yeah, I would have a show like Oprah. I would be the host of Everyday Christmas. Give Travis your wish list.
Just gonna stand there and hear me cry. Well, that's alright because I love the way you lie. I love the way you lie.
I can't tell you what it really is. I can only tell you what it feels like. And right now it's a steel knife in my windpipe. I can't breathe, but I still fight. Well, I can fight as long as the wrong feels right.
We had a memorable event happen right before we left for spring break, so I'll add in a quick story time here. You've heard about shark bait, 3 beers, and arms now, but another person got an unwanted nickname that year, and that name was Satan. When there's unlimited quantities of questionable food, sometimes people pull pranks. There was a meal in the CI when Nick Stanton had unscrewed a salt shaker while his roommate Claimer was up getting food. Claimer sat down at the table with a plate piled high with food, and everyone who knew got real quiet when they saw just how much food he'd gotten. Claimer then picked up the salt shaker to add a little salt on top of his meal, and on the first shake, the entire container dumped all over the plate. Claimer assumed it was Nick, but Nick thought quickly and passed the blame off to Amy. "Oh, I didn't know you were Satan herself. Thanks," Claimer said in a tone halfway between jovial and overdramatically hurt. She protested, but the damage had been done. The name stuck, and Claimer believed that she'd actually done it. However, rather than fight back against the name and the situation, she embraced it and started doing that same salt shaker prank to various people over the next year or so. This got out of hand pretty quickly, and a number of people got caught up in it by mistake. For example, Alex Hackworth had waited in line for like 15 minutes to get a custom omelet made, and she'd forgotten she had unscrewed the salt shaker at the table he was sitting at. And after the salt spilled everywhere, all over that custom omelet he just waited for, he just let out a sad sigh and got up to get more food. After that, everyone started checking every salt and pepper shaker before they added anything to their food. But I used Cholula, so it didn't matter for me. Anyway, we released the Apple Spoof on YouTube on my 19th birthday, and that ended up being the second to last comedy skit video that I ever did. I used to enjoy them quite a bit, but after my accident, I just found it harder to be funny. Despite going to Whittier College, after the injury, I wasn't quite as witty as I used to be, at least in the first few years. But you'll have to tune in next week to see how we got a York school teacher to act in a Carpe Diem scene.
Yeah, I bought a Mac once. Couldn't make rent on my house. Couldn't finish a car payment. I was living under a Mac on the street.